Hello, everyone. I'm Clark Cahill, Events Manager with the South China Morning Post. Thank you all for being here with us for the latest segment in our Redefining Hong Kong series and our first segment of the 2021 calendar year. This time, we'll be asking our panelists if e-commerce can thrive in Hong Kong after COVID-19. Before we ask our panelists this question and more, we need to give a big thank you to our platinum sponsor for the Redefining Hong Kong series, EY. And before we jump into the panel, please enjoy a quick video segment from our sponsor.
Everything started with enterprise systems, which use structured data to support business processes. The first digital revolution was led by mobile and online technologies, which expanded the borders of an enterprise and brought us big data. Then came the AI revolution, fueled by an unlimited rise in data. Sensors, machine learning, and cloud computing transformed business models. Today, intelligent technologies have the power to bring exponential change. They learn on their own. They adapt and reinforce each other. Intelligent technologies create growth, innovation, and value. But new risks, such as unintended data use, threaten to undermine trust and create trust gaps. This is why, now more than ever, trust is a business imperative. It's vital to close trust gaps with customers and establish trust across markets, ecosystems, and regulators. To do this, EY developed Trusted Intelligence, our approach to embed trust into data on its journey to value creation.
All right, let's get into it. Our panelists for this discussion are Flora Hu, who is head of e-commerce for Asia at Carlsberg Group, Reeve Kwan, who is co-founder of GoGoX, which some of you may know better by its former name, GoGoVan, Bill Lee, Director of New Verticals for Hong Kong at Food Panda, and Ken Lo, who is Head of E-Commerce at SFDHL Supply Chain China. Moderating the discussion is Denise Tsang, who is a Hong Kong news editor with the South China Morning Post. Before I pass things over to Denise, I just want to make sure our audience is aware that we'll be accepting and encouraging you to submit questions to our panelists, as we'll be reserving some time at the end of the discussion for your questions. You can do so by using the Q&A function through the WebEx platform, which can be accessed on the right side of your screen. Without further ado, I will pass things over to Denise to begin the discussion.
Thank you, Clark. A year after COVID-19 has hit Hong Kong, we have lived in a totally new normal in virtually everything, from eating, shopping, working from home, to meeting online, like what we are doing right now. The city is not the same. During social distancing, we have seen Hong Kong condense the shift to digitizing commerce and payment system from what could have taken years into a matter of months. I would like to start our discussion by looking back at the e-commerce development trend during the past year. Bill, your Food Panda business has been doing very well because everyone has to live on takeaway now, basically. So how buoyant was it during the past year? Can you share some figures and elaborate the trend?
Hi everyone. Very happy to be here to share experience with everybody. Thank you, Denise. Actually, Food Panda, has been in Hong Kong since 2012, and the year leading up to 2019, we have been experiencing triple-digit growth. So what we're seeing in Hong Kong as well as the other regions, we have been growing very strongly. And what we also see is that during the pandemic, different countries, within our organizations, experience different sort of growth. Some experience some form of restriction, some grow more, but by and large, we saw the growth remaining steady throughout.
Right. So what about Carlsberg, Flora?
Yeah, well, thank you, Denise. Hi, everyone. Very nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. This is Flora from Carlsberg. Before COVID-19, we have obviously relatively low online penetration for beer category overall, because as you can imagine, this is a impulse category. There is a little bit of a social element within beer category naturally. And as you can imagine, COVID has significantly accelerated e-commerce, and particularly for categories like us with originally very low penetration. But if you ask me this question, actually, I really want to emphasize the fact that the growth of e-commerce started way before COVID-19. Just echoing, in fact, what Bill has just said, right? Even in 2018, we've had some Asian markets experiencing more than 200% growth in e-commerce volume. That's ultimately why at Carlsberg, we have been always focusing on making our beers available online even before COVID-19 kicked in. So I think that type of long-term vision, investing ahead of the curve, is now proved to be paying off in challenging times like now. Back to you, Denise.
Right, cool. So what about the logistics situation? Perhaps Reeve can shed some light on that.
Sure. Thank you, Denise. So this is Rick from GoGoX. So I think during the COVID-19, our delivery segment, the services actually increased quite a lot. I think it's because people are staying at home, and then they basically use proxy buying services, as well as a lot of like e-commerce businesses are actually using our like door-to-door delivery services. I think compared to before COVID-19, I think our actual business is like 300 to 500% growth throughout the whole year. So I think the trend is actually changed a lot. So this part of the business actually increased a lot as well.
Right. So what type of goods that people normally, transfer on it by using Google Ads? Just curious.
So actually, the range quite wide. Yeah, so actually, as a, let's say, normal customer, like people actually use maybe actually getting their Chinese medicine as well. So because they cannot actually go out, so basically they ask our courier to actually get the Chinese medicine from the local pharmacy, the Chinese style. Maybe actually e-commerce as well, right? People actually order for food, especially in Foodpanda. But a lot of people actually like for business, right? They have a lot of like frozen steak. That kind of like or frozen seafood they need to get delivered, so they will use us to deliver those as well. So a lot of like traditional or local retail actually, because people don't want to go out, or people cannot shop outside, actually they use our service to actually deliver those items to them, because we are focusing on like same day instant 4-hour delivery. So this kind of delivery services actually fit for the user case. Yeah.
See, interesting. So what about you, Ken?
Hi, this is Ken from SFDH Supply Chain. So thank you for inviting to me to be here. So back to Dennis' question. For the e-commerce development, we are from the contract logistics side. We use that to serve the contract logistics warehouse business in Hong Kong for many years, but we have changed a little bit in the our business owner partnership. So we used to do a lot of e-commerce even before the COVID-19, but in the past we used it to serve a particular customer to customer. So way before the COVID-19, we have the idea to consolidate all the resources to focus to set up something new to tailor make for the e-commerce. So currently I'm in charge of the e-commerce department. It's a little bit brand new, less than a year. But we just, that's what I said, we consolidate the resources so that we do have a unique individual warehouse and also the service to handle all the e-commerce business. Definitely the COVID-19 is a really true accelerator to let the true still have some concern to use the e-commerce before, but COVID-19 forced them to try to do online shopping, and we see that the trend is cannot be go back, and the popularity of the e-commerce business, and together with the traditional retail shop, that will be a new channel to do the business in Hong Kong.
Wow, this is I think it's a good point that you raised, that is the trend that can't be go back. So what about other speakers' view, especially like Bill? Do you think that will be the same? I mean, it can't be go back.
Yeah, I completely agree with the other panelists. Quite simply because before the pandemic, we had our food delivery business, and then in some countries we started our groceries marketplace business as well as our own groceries fulfillment channel. We are operating in more than 7-8 markets now in APAC and like 20 over markets across the world. What we are seeing is during the pandemic, when we started the business, obviously we have growth, very strong growth. But in Hong Kong in particular, for example, we have had this is now the 4th wave of the pandemic. During when there's a wave, and then in the lull between the wave, we see that generally the cohorts of the people buying on our platform and their behavior remains fairly consistent, whether it comes to purchase value, order frequency, etc. So what it basically gives us credence and our belief that this trend is here to stay. It will continue staying, even post-pandemic, and therefore, we're continuing our investment in this channel as well as other services within our company as well.
So, what do you think the growth rate will be in, for example, 2021?
What we are seeing is we are quite confident that this will continue growing. But I think, as what Ken pointed out just now, e-commerce, will not be a market as a whole, but it will essentially, be merged upon, an omni-channel solution. I think from a retailer's perspective, it's got to be seen from a customer standpoint as part of an overall solution. I think that's the way to go about it.
Right. What about Flora? So, what do you think about this?
Yeah, absolutely agree with what Bill has just said. It's about the omni-channel, right? Like we always say, e-commerce is far beyond being just a sales channel. It is a media. It is a data insights generator. Those are usually the 3 things that I tell people, in terms of the roles of e-commerce to any kind of a brand. And if we look at being e-commerce or being a media, in fact, that you can, make your store, physical store, actually be seen online and drive traffic from online to offline as well. So, when you approach e-commerce, it should be always a holistic journey. It should be always an omni-channel approach rather than thinking e-commerce only. And also, I do want to say, probably there's a little bit of a different perspective here, because for Carlsberg and a lot of our peers within the FMCG industry, majority of our sales or our volumes still come from offline. So we do have a very big chunk of traditional business in addition to the e-commerce business. So for our category, as you can imagine, people's consumptions outside of their home were limited during the COVID-19 period. So we do expect that there is a kind of rebound for non-e-commerce consumptions after COVID-19, but that's totally fine, right? We are taking it as a holistic approach. No matter where consumers buy our products, we think it's good, right? As long as they buy our products. But we do expect, as many of the panelists have already said, right, that we do expect, the online shopping behavior to stay. And for any kind of e-commerce, the biggest challenge is always to get the first order because of the registration process, because of traffic driving. Like once the consumers finish the first registration process and actually make the first order, they experience really the convenience that e-commerce brought, and then they usually stay, as long as we, as the providers of e-commerce, continue to offer the convenience and adding extra values to the consumers.
Right. So it looks like how to handle consumers is really one of the lessons you guys learned from last year. So how about other things that you've learned from last year's experience? Like Ken or Reef, do you have any sharing?
As what I mentioned, our business is mainly focused on domestic market for the retailer. Retailer is definitely a big portion of our business in the past. Since the last year, actually not only last year, in the second half of the 2019, there's something that's really affecting the local retail markets. So, our business is based on the transition of the replenishment. So, to be honest, the impact to the business is big. I can say it's huge. So, but on the other hand, is the demand of the buying is still there. They just didn't go to the retail shop or go out on the street to buy something, but shift out to the buying online. So, so that's why I said that the e-commerce there is definitely have to go, and we did really do the right choice to set up the individual function to serve these territories.
Right, Reef.
Yeah, I think the trend actually is for the e-commerce is definitely keep going, and then I don't think it will like go back down even after COVID. I think people are just get used to the new style of, I would say, living or buying things. Or keep doing online instead of going out. Like currently, even though like let's say people are get used to the COVID-19, and then people are like trying to get out, right, and go out, and you can see more people on the street. But actually, when I think see all the platforms or all the e-commerce, their business actually didn't drop as well, right? It keep growing. You can look at, let's say, HAT Mall. People are getting HAT Mall to buy more and more things, right? I guess Foodpanda more, and then maybe Casper as well, right? I think that the trend of the e-commerce growing in Hong Kong actually, I think due to the COVID-19, and then actually it boosts up a lot. And then I will see the trend that it just keep going and going, and faster and faster. Yeah.
Right, faster and faster. Do you mean the delivery services? Or?
As well, right? Yeah, people do. I mean, if looking at our business, right? People actually will actually ask for more. I mean, speedy delivery service. Service level. Let's say because we do offer like 3 different like service level in our platform. But definitely let's say the instant delivery service is actually the most people that request for this kind of service level, more than the 4 hours, more than the same day. So I do see people actually looking forward is more speedy service with cheaper price for sure. Yeah.
Right. You know, Google X was started from an SME, and now Hong Kong has got so many SMEs in retailing and F&B. So what's your experience that can be shared with SMEs if they want to get more into e-commerce?
Definitely, as a start, right, they can leverage a lot of platform. There's a lot of platform outside. Foodpanda is one of the platform they can get leverage. Shopline, Shopify, or even like Facebook, Instagram, those kind of like platform. People can definitely just sign up account and let's say sell things online. In a matter of fact, that a lot of our, I would say, small and SME or even individual sellers, the growth actually is from those platforms. People actually sell through like Instagram, Facebook, or different like small platforms that actually use our delivery service to actually deliver the items. So they just don't have to step out of their door or their office, so they can actually complete the delivery service as a whole journey. So I think from that point of view, I think as we can see, a lot of this kind of like small, or actually I would say the micro business owners actually more and more coming in, and then that actually boosts up the whole e-commerce a lot.
See, Ken, what do you think?
Definitely, yeah, I agree with the from the logistics side. The huge demand generated from the e-commerce demand is a big part, and as I know that the Hong Kong, the Hong Kong is a small territory, right? The rental is high, no matter you're renting a apartment, office, or warehouse, right? So in terms of warehouse, if you're individual merchant, they have their own individual warehouse. The ROI, the return on investment is definitely not very good. So in terms of that, we really do need some platform to do the consolidation. Just like the Google X from Viv, right? They are actually doing a platform to do the consolidation. Same to us. We are actually doing the same thing. We are having our IT platform, and we are doing the consolidation. Just feedback to Viv, he mentioned about some very famous shopping cart and platform marketplaces, right? We also do that. We do a IT integration with a very famous platform like Shopify, Shoplines, those kind of things there, and famous marketplaces. We are not only focused on in Hong Kong, but also in the world. We help the people to do the consolidation. We provide the warehouse fulfillment service so that we can leverage the economy of scale to reduce the cost, to help our customer, to help our Hong Kong merchants to run their business more better. Cost is still critical to any business, right? So we want to help them in that way.
I think that's good. I think I would need to go back to your regional sharing later, but I want to ask Bill about Foodpanda situation in terms of like development on technologies and also in the business model.
Yeah, so absolutely right. So where Foodpanda in terms of its e-commerce development, we see our place is we are growing a segment called quick commerce. What it means is essentially delivery as fast as 15 minutes, near instant gratification 24/7. And we see this is a growing pie within the e-commerce channel as a whole. And this is where we're primarily focusing our investment from. And it's a very natural progression from us because we've always been about food delivery, always about on demand. And now, what we have, for example, in Hong Kong, we have now 15 stores, our own micro-fulfillment center, whereby, we replenish goods from consumer product groups, for example, from Carlsberg, Nestle, etc., and then sell to customer in as fast as 15 minutes, right? And what we see is, I completely echo what Reeve said just now, which is, for SMEs, the investment, there's always, use, don't try to reinvent the wheel. There's many tools out there we can use. But I think learning from the experience, what in foodpanda is a couple of things, right? The firstly, I think always invest in the right mindset and the corporate culture. It's about changing, it's about growth. And to do that, it's about finding and retaining the right talent. Secondly, customer experience and logistics is key. That's why, it's important to work with like partners, for example, like SFDHL, GoGoX, which have invested a lot in e-commerce. And thirdly, it's about ensuring that the supply chain and fulfillment is intact. It's an integrated supply chain fulfillment, such that the customer experience, whether it's in-store or e-commerce, is consistent. And I think that's important.
I see. So what's the biggest investment in the business?
Right now, we are opening many stores around Hong Kong to ensure full coverage. At the same time, we are investing a lot on building new verticals, which is marketplaces. We are also investing in things, for example, like Panda Merchant and Panda Go. Panda Merchant is our B2B marketplace, connecting suppliers to restaurants as a customer. And then Panda Go is essentially an on-demand fleet, where we are able to also, serve retailers as well as, shops and restaurants, etc. Yeah.
Right. So it's more like a horizontal and vertical expansion at the same time, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. It's a very natural expansion, from our original flywheel, right, which is the customers, restaurants, as well as the logistics. Yeah.
Right. So what about brand development, like, for example, with Carlsberg and Flora?
Yeah, so in terms of a brand strategy, given the change, development within the landscape, right, I think there are two things that we particularly did. One is really to explore different kind of drinking occasions, because in the past, obviously, people usually drink beers outside of home. But right now, a lot of the times, people are actually stuck at home. So, we need to explore new drinking occasions and consumption occasions. So one thing that our teams across Asia actually did was live streaming. So for example, like we did, live streaming sessions themed under cheers over the screen, right? And then one of my favorite live streaming sessions is actually one of the Kronenbourg 1664 Blanc related live streaming sessions, where we invited leaders within the business talking very passionately about the French heritage of our brand, including some really fun historical stories. So it really kind of gives us a chance to interact with our consumers digitally and directly talk to them. So that's really well received. And globally, we even held beer tasting sessions online. So for example, we use pre-order of a beer, shipping beer kind of a tasting pack and shipping products over to consumers' place before the online event. And then we have the beer expert actually explaining different beers in the tasting pack over live streaming sessions. So that was very well received as well. So that's the first part. And the second part in terms of strategy is, we want to add more human touch to the digital experience. And really, again, it comes back to engaging consumers differently compared to before and more actively over the online and over e-commerce channels. So for example, we have online concerts in some Asian countries, like Tuborg is one of our brands, and we have Tuborg sponsored concerts online. It's young, full of energy. It has this music element in the brand equity, and we're just building on that and really able to bring in that vibe with the power of e-commerce live streaming. And another example would be online product launch parties, which we also did in many Asian countries, and that was very well received as well.
What about Hong Kong? Is there any particular examples?
Yeah, in Hong Kong, we definitely did many interesting initiatives. I mean, with the Food Panda, for instance, right? I think right now, with the power of a Food Panda, we're able to deliver our beer, make our beer available, chilled, delivered within 30 minutes, and that's a huge accomplishment, actually. And thanks to our business partner, Food Panda.
How did it do it within 30 minutes? From where to where? Yeah.
Within Hong Kong, in certain areas, yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Is it just for a one-off marketing initiative, or it is a norm?
It is, yeah, maybe just to add on to what Flora was saying, because our fulfillment stores are located in each zone pretty much, and the delivery time for each zone is about 15 minutes radius. So when the customer places an order, we immediately do the pick, pack, and send it out to customer. And that's why it's unique in that sense for our space in the e-commerce. You can get ice cream delivered, frozen food, chilled beers, etc., etc. Yeah.
Right. This is, I can't believe it's in Hong Kong because traffic jam is so bad here. And you can still make it within 30 minutes. But I think, now everyone wants to do e-commerce, so the competition is quite keen. How or what are the ways to retain customers after you've built like a pool of them? How about Ken?
I think in that part, technology is definitely one of the solutions. For example, when you're talking about you have already keep a certain amount of a certain number of customers, right? Maybe you threw it on some platform, so that definitely you have some data from them, and then you want to leverage this kind of data and let the customer to come back again. I think like for example, CRM, customer relationship management, those kind of software, right, is pretty common today. You can use those kind of things to connect your online store, the real life retail channel. So altogether, you can do some like a promotion marketing campaign, or upsell them to buy some more, give them instant discount on one purchase. I think those kind of things can help you to gain more business from there.
Right. And Reeve?
Yeah, actually, basically, we make sure the user, as well with the merchants, we say SMEs, actually they have a better client experience. So because when people expect speedy delivery, they definitely are very eager to get the items we receive, right? So we make sure we get have the whole experience, which is very seamlessly. Basically, once let's say once the SME place the order, the receiver actually receive the SMS with the tracking page. They can see where the couriers goes along the route. When they actually do all the items, they have this timestamp to make sure all the process is very transparent to the user, so they don't get so eager. Basically, they can track all from end to end. So basically, that gives a lot of that solves a lot of problem from the merchant side, right? Because when you buy something and then you want to get delivered, and then if you are very eager and then want to receive the items faster, and then you will just keep calling the merchants that, hey, where is it? Where is it now? How come it's not delivered? That kind of things, right? But if it is actually shown to you transparent in your SMS or the any or in your app, right? Basically, you can see the whole journey from end to end. So that actually helps the merchants a lot, actually, SME. And that actually gives us the better user experience from the merchant side and the SME side. And then they keeps coming back with placing more orders in our platform. So that actually kind of like have the flywheel, right? In between the SMEs itself or their customer as well. And then we just have to make sure in the middle part, which we do the logistic part, we ensure the couriers or bikers or even the van drivers actually deliver the items safely. Yeah, and in one piece. Yeah.
In one piece. So what about a bill, because I heard sometimes people do complain that food, by the time food gets to home, is cold already. So how do you retain your customers?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, food delivery companies, have to make sure that the food experience is really good. And to be honest, I mean, there will be some cases whereby it is not great, and we work hard to rectify it based on that situation. But by and large, when we look at the trend over the last 5 years, for example, as recent as 2018, our average delivery time in Hong Kong, was about 48 minutes. And now, our average delivery time to the customers for food segment is down to almost 20 plus minutes. So that's like a reduction in half. And also the type of orders where we are late by more than 10 minutes have also reduced down significantly. So I mean, a lot of effort, goes into place, and kudos to our operations team here, ensuring that the customer experience remains intact. And this is really also to go back to your question just now. What sort of how can a retailer, how can a platform remain relevant, right? It's really about finding a niche, and then as what Flora was saying, ensuring that the customer experience remain very intact. Like for example, HKT Mall, TV Mall, really focus upon cold chain logistics. And our Panda Mart and Panda Mall is about near instant gratification, 15 minutes delivery. So find your niche, work on it, because as more and more people who come online, the customer acquisition cost is going to get more and more expensive. And therefore, it's important to always ensure loyalty, because lifetime value is how you can turn this around.
I see. So what about Flora on Carlsberg situation?
Yeah, I think in terms of retaining consumers, I can speak more from the brand perspective. I think there are two kind of a short-term ones, and then there's one long-term one. So the short-term ones, number one, is really about whether we have high quality and reasonably constant flow of digital contents. Because as you grow in e-commerce, right, and as your consumers spend much more screening time, actually looking at the screens, right? You need to constantly inspire them. And the way that you inspire them and get them discover your brand and get them to ultimately purchase your products is through the digital contents. And what we observe across the industry, and this is not really limited to Carlsberg, actually across many of the FMCG brand, is that because we're used to the old traditional way of, not really having enough digital contents up to the requirement of the ever-changing landscape that we're facing right now. So that is actually one critical aspect in order to retain consumers. And the number two thing that we can do is basically, I think shopping needs to be fun. In order to retain them, you need to constantly kind of provide that fun element to your shopping experience. So for example, across Asia, we've seen more and more gamifications on e-commerce. And that's a kind of one example where you can, really create a little bit of a fun element within the shopping journey and increase your engagement with the consumers and build your relationship from there on. And last but not least, it's really about long-term product development, because I think in order to retain consumers and maintaining and upgrading your relationship with the consumers as a brand, can you really inspire them with your new portfolio? Do you really have the new products reflecting the latest consumer trend? That becomes really key as well.
I see.
Back to you.
Right. Well, when you have so many data with you, I mean the personal data of customers with you, and recently there's a talk about the storm on WhatsApp's policy change on the personal data. So what's your advice on the transparency and also protection of personal data? Like, say, Reeve?
Actually, for our side, right, basically we actually collect very less of your privacy information other than the phone number and then basically your location when you place the order, and then basically we will give you the tracking information for the courier and driver to make sure you can see where they are, right? But other than that, we don't have a lot of issue on the transparency or the privacy data on our side. Yeah.
See, Ken.
For us, right, we definitely will keep some data like personal name and contact information like address and phone number, but that's only for delivery purpose, right? More critical information like credit card information. Yeah, to be honest, we also do the cross-border to international market. We definitely have some customers, they are not based in Hong Kong. They through the payment to us through some payment gateway. We don't keep the credit card because we use the token mechanism to keep them inside the financial institution. They keep them, or this has definitely save the risk of the leakage, and also I believe their mechanisms can put them on. And on the other hand, we will never know that any danger or any new threat will happen from any smart hackers, right? From any smart hackers, right? We really rely on some proven mechanism, like and also rely on some reputable vendors. We are vendors. We also rely on our vendors. We use some global leading service provider to help us to do their part, and we do our part. So more likely, I think a trustable vendor is some way as a solution to look for.
So what about you, Bill?
Yeah, so I think in foodpanda, we keep customer information, we treat it as sacred, number one. Number two, we ensure that information that we collect from the customer, is very much treated as we get as little information as possible, it's absolutely needed for business operations. And thirdly, we have internal control in places on who can access what. And I think more importantly, to your point about WhatsApp, I think it seems as though from the outside right now, it seems to be a communications issue, right? It seems as though the privacy concerns was, larger than what it is. So I think that in mind, for example, in foodpanda, we also have a crisis management policy and plan in place. In the event, unfortunate event, there is a data leak, and there's a way of managing and communicating that properly. I think that is key.
Yeah, it's more about communication. When as we talk so much about Hong Kong, probably once the COVID-19 is gone, do you think there's a need for companies to keep the brick and mortar stores while keeping or developing the online services? Do we need to have both or either one? So how about Bill?
I mean, to be honest, it really depends on the type of business that you're operating, right? I think, but on a general scale, I mean, like for a company like foodpanda, has always been online first. We are going somewhat offline right now with our own fulfillment centers. But by and large, I think all the speakers have pointed out just now the omni-channel solution. I think it will be more than just a retail sales channel, Flora pointed out. It will be a multifunctional omni-channel component. For example, we have seen in other countries, like in Singapore, you have Singapore Post, investing in a shopping mall where it's an experiential store. People experience it, but then they buy online. Or from an SF standpoint, right? It could be an online and offline fulfillment center where it's an integrated customer experience with cost improvement, or click and collect return location, like what HKTV Mall is doing as well. So my view is the number of stores may reduce, but retail stores will still have an important role to play within the retail for the customers.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So, but I think now online is borderless. So if we want to say, I don't think people would just focus on Hong Kong market. If there's a chance that they can cross the border or even go to the region. So, how's the market look like right now? I mean, if Hong Kong companies want to expand their presence beyond the city, what sort of strategies that they can take? For example, maybe Flora can talk about it, as the company has got so much presence in the region.
I think if companies are thinking of expanding beyond Hong Kong, I guess there are two tips that I can potentially provide. I think number one, from a brand perspective, you do have, again, I was talking about the need of high quality digital contents and a high quantity of digital contents. And bear in mind that a lot of the contents, you can actually leverage them across different markets. And that actually makes the entire process, more efficient. So, if you are thinking of expanding into different markets, and make sure that you tap into those kind of digital contents already in your library, and adapt them locally, obviously, but then, make the entire process more smoothly and efficiently. And the number two tip, I guess, is to really be aware of the local specific dynamics, because, people tend to think that the different, especially across the Southeast Asia, right? Like the countries might be looking kind of similar to each other, but as soon as you really dig deeper into each of the markets in Southeast Asia, it's actually very specific. It has very unique characteristics. So just make sure that you are aware of all those local specific dynamics before going into a cross-border business.
Right. What about Reef? Because now become Google X, and it's gone into the region for more than 6 or 7 markets. What's your experience?
Yeah. So definitely see a lot of like scenario that actually Fiona mentioned actually quite fit for us. So basically we enter different markets and then we do see like a different market trends or actually practice in logistics across different market, right? So let's say Singapore and Hong Kong, you feel is quite alike, right? It's more like a small in size and then population is quite high, right? But in terms of logistics, it's a totally different story. Basically the practice in Hong Kong doesn't fit the practice in Singapore as well. So I think if you're talking about like local logistics, definitely a lot of practice is totally different and then need to be invented real, right? But when you're talking e-commerce, I think a lot of things actually, especially because of a lot of like, I would say, let's say Shopify, Shopline, this kind of platform is actually the practice quite standardized for the e-commerce purchase, right? So when they try to, or even Shopee, so those kind of platform, when you relying on those platforms to actually extend your exposure to different region, I think the practice is actually quite a little bit standardized so that you can actually take up easily. I mean, set up easily if you want to expand outside Hong Kong, right? For example, and then we do see a lot of trends that a lot of like local players, no matter it's in Hong Kong, Singapore, even Taiwan, right, or South Korea, they want to sell their items not just locally but regionally, right? So we do. I mean, we are exploring how to help those players or local retailers to actually sell their items abroad, so that even like let's say in Hong Kong, people like the Taiwan fruits, right? How can we ship them from Taiwan and to Hong Kong, or let's say people love the clothes or makeup from Seoul, right, or South Korea, and how can we bridge the local retailers or local sellers actually they can sell their items to, let's say, Hong Kong. So these kind of things that I think we keep exploring, but definitely we will see the trend will be exponentially growth for the next few years, so that people won't just satisfy, or the customer won't be just satisfied when they buy the items locally, but also they can actually pick up and buy items from out of the region as well.
Right. What about Ken?
We are based in Hong Kong, as what I mentioned about our business more based on with tightly coupled with the warehouse, right? So when you're talking about a cross-border e-commerce business, we're actually doing the things that we are helping not only the local merchants but also overseas merchants shipping out from Hong Kong. But why Hong Kong? Because I think today China is still the major factory, the manufacturing country in the world. Even though something is changing, China is still the world factories, and also Hong Kong has a very special position, and also because of our background. Hong Kong is a free port. Traditionally, Hong Kong is a transit port. In the past, and very successful, is well proven. But now our advantage is still there, and also we just shift from traditional way to the online way. In terms of efficiency, Hong Kong is definitely still have a great efficiency in terms of like a customer brokerage clearance when compared to mainland China. So that's why when we talk about keep the inventory space in Hong Kong and receiving the order from the rest of the world and then ship it out, we still have the advantage. But people will ask, Hong Kong is as what I mentioned, the Hong Kong rental is high. How come the warehouse space in Hong Kong has the advantage? I'm talking about when we compare the Hong Kong warehouse to the overseas site, for example, like in US. US, maybe the warehouse, the rental is definitely cheaper than Hong Kong, but the labor cost is very high. So in terms of that, you set up a DC, or we call it a distribution center in Hong Kong as a global DC, compared to the local regional DC like in America or in Europe, the overall costs are definitely cheaper, lower, and then you can easily to manipulate your inventory. You can allocate based on different sales channel, no matter it's through your online shop. Let's say leverage the famous platform Shopify, or you're selling your products to the marketplace like Amazon, eBay. you can keep all the inventory in one spot, and then we easily can do the allocation by the technology, by the platform, right? And also, if you have a new idea, you want to have some new product launch or MPI, maybe some people nowadays it's very common to use those kind of crowdfunding platform like Kickstarter, right? I see a lot. If you see that sometimes you see to do some research on those kind of crowdfunding platform, you will see that the shipping charges from different destination is totally different, and you will see that the lowest cost usually will be shipped to Hong Kong because they all keep the inventory in Hong Kong. So that's a trend, and we as a Hong Kong people, I would say that Hong Kong still have that advantage. We really want to help the Hong Kong merchants to do their business to face the world.
I see. What about Bill?
Yeah, I pretty much echo what the other panelists have said. The only other thing to add would be, when you go regional, probably work with regional partners. We have a regional footprint, and that's where I think GoGoVax, as well as SFDHL are very vital components of this partnership as you go regional.
Right. Well, Hong Kong has been known as a laggard in IT development or e-commerce, especially in e-commerce, for years. So after this year's development, do you think where Hong Kong is right now in terms of, e-commerce development in the region? Are we still lagging behind, or are we getting better, or where are we? What do you think, Reeve?
Definitely better. I think, compared to other regions, I can tell is still a little bit behind, but I think the gap is actually closer and closer. Because I think there's a joke, right? When you during the COVID, right? What is the main reason that your company or yourself going to change the style, right? Not the CEO, not the COO, or not the director, but the COVID-19, right? So I think that actually quite true. Definitely look at Hong Kong right now. I think for the current, if compared to the COVID-19, right, to hit what the whole Hong Kong doing in e-commerce, I think it would take like maybe 2 or 3 years to achieve what we are right now. But I think it took less than a year because of, unfortunately, due to COVID-19, right? Definitely, maybe we are just a few months behind other market. I was sure, but I am sure right now, from now on, the trend is actually growing very fast. I do hope that the whole trend keep going as we speak, and then faster and faster. So that would be benefit for the whole community.
Right, people have been comparing Hong Kong with Singapore. So in this aspect, do you think Hong Kong's still lagging behind Singapore, or we are very close?
I would say very close. Yeah.
Right. What about Bill?
I think compared to Singapore, there's still a gap, but I think I agree with Reeve, the gap is closing very quickly. In terms of, I think, attitudes towards embracing e-commerce and online has changed. We see investments going in more heavily. We also see, things like, delivery time going faster and faster, and that's all in line with what we expect to see. Yeah.
Right. Flora?
Yeah, absolutely agree with what Reeve and Bill have just shared. I think in terms of comparing ourselves with Singapore, it is still lagging behind in certain ways, but we have seen very positive signs catching up this trend. And if we see the overall kind of a trajectory of e-commerce maturity, right? Usually before achieving a full maturity of e-commerce, what gets matured first is the enablers. Let's say logistics, let's say e-payment. And if we look at even the panelists here today, right, you can see how flourish we have been observing in terms of the logistic providers enabling the e-commerce businesses within Hong Kong. And also we have been seeing more and more e-payment options across Hong Kong as well. So all those are very, very positive signs. So I'm very confident that e-commerce in Hong Kong will be growing further and catching up with the rest of the region.
Right. Ken?
I think definitely the e-commerce trend will be getting closer. The gap compared to some advanced countries. Hong Kong people are always smart guys, right? they need some reason to do something. The reason is simple. This time is an opportunity, right? They are opportunity driven. That whenever they see the opportunity, they see the revenue, they see the money, right? They will go for it. So this kind of motivation is a huge. If you see the from the market, like the Hong Kong TV more, the business is getting huge, right? A big jump, a big growth, right? And you see that the Timor, they have announced that they will set up a Hong Kong, definitely only for Hong Kong new marketplace, right? So you see the demands here, and whenever the people see the demand, then they will go for it, no matter what, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So basically, if we go back to the question of this forum, which is, can e-commerce thrive in Hong Kong after COVID-19? So after I listened to all your sharing, it looks like everyone agrees to it, right? Unless, if you don't disagree, just raise your hand. See, I'm sure, that everyone agrees with it. So thank you so much for your insight and sharing of experience. So now let me hand over to MC Clark, who will host the Q&A section.
Thanks, Denise. Yeah, time for some audience Q&A. We've got a lot of questions coming in, so I do apologize if we don't quite get to all of them. And also to our speakers, I'll probably just target one question to one of you and then move on to the next so we can get as many in as possible. This first one, I'll go to Bill. There's a couple people asking about, and you commented on it briefly earlier, but regarding logistics operations, how do you deal with health and safety when people are involved with handling? How do you make sure that the integrity of your meal deliveries are hygienic, safe, and tamper-proof?
Right, thank you, Clark. So we take all these issues very, very seriously. And so we have a very strict compliance policy that we require our riders to adhere to. And when, we find out that our riders do not adhere to this compliance policy, then we basically take serious actions against it. Having said that, we also, implement many, many things. For example, we ensure that our riders have thermal bags, such that, during the handling process, from the restaurant to the customers, food is kept in a thermal bag, the right temperature, and the right environment to ensure hygiene. And also recently, for the COVID situation, we've also introduced things as cashless payment, which is we have promoted it more aggressively, and also things like contactless delivery, where customers get handed the food without necessarily having any interaction with the riders. Again, to all the steps to basically ensure better standard, better safety for consumers and restaurants alike, riders alike. Yeah.
Thanks, Bill. This next question comes from Edward Lau. I'm going to ask it to Ken. He asks, is there a developing trend towards PUDO, P-U-D-O, also pick-up, drop-off, kiosks at malls or housing estate common areas that's to support the e-commerce last mile and contactless deliveries?
So I think he's talking about the receiving side. If I'm wrong, I'm not wrong.
Yes, I think so.
In Hong Kong, I think is we're under SF Group now, so the SF Express, they do really have a lot of similar facilities, like shops around the corner, and also they have some lockers, e-lockers, right? So that I think it's serving that kind of purpose, right? So definitely that is something to go. And as what I know that the utilization of that the e-lockers are very high, and SF Express, our sister company, and what I hear from them, that is they use it to open the e-locker to serve other industrial players, but now they don't open it. Because the utilization is too high, they can only serve their own purpose, and so that means those kind of facilities, the demands are very, very high, especially for the e-commerce business.
Okay, thanks, Ken. This next one, I'll go to Flora here. This comes from Charlotte So. Regarding speed, what are the major obstacles to stretch the limits? Technology, infrastructure, or people?
You mean the speed of growing e-commerce or the speed of delivery?
They don't. Charlotte did not specify, but I'm going to guess delivery.
Oh, I see. Okay. Actually let me answer both, because actually I
Sure,
probably
yeah.
can add more value to the latter than the previous one, since
okay.
the rest of the panelists clearly have more experience compared to me related to logistics. But in terms of speed, really, I think it comes down to whether you can forecast, you can place your stock in the right place, right? And if you look at the entire logistics model, what is the most expensive part and the most tricky part is actually the last mile. And a lot of times it's costly, and in order to actually achieve the maximum speed, you almost need to place the inventory in the radius, a really relatively limited radius, even before consumers place the order. So that requires us to really think ahead, having the technology that backend to forecast whether we think that order will happen at certain limited amount of time in certain limited radius. So that is the key, really, in the future for shortening our speed for the delivery. And then if we zoom out a little bit in terms of brand, like growing e-commerce overall, like what it determines the speed of that, obviously infrastructure for sure, that's really determines the speed of growing. And also at the back end, when I talk about infrastructure, in fact, as you mentioned, Clark, it's also about technology, right? Like whether we do have the technology infrastructure at the back end to support the high growth of e-commerce, whether we do have the data actually at the back end talking to each other and generating the actionable insights, that becomes really key. Back to you, Clark.
Thanks, Flora. So we'll go to Reeve now. This is from James Lloyd. What support do the companies here look for from their partner banks, e.g., cash management, trade solution, FX, etc.? Is there anything unique that you're seeking from your partner banks?
So partner brands, right? Okay. So basically, we are exploring a lot of things, right? Not just as a GoX as a platform, right? So we do seek a lot of solution for, let's say, for our SME clients, what kind of like facilities that they can actually leverage, right? For our driver couriers, other than like they just pick orders from our platform and then receive fees, right? Any other things that we can actually complete the whole flight route, right? So for as a driver perspective, right? Other than taking orders from us, do you have anything that actually help them to maintain their vehicles and help them with their income? If they are not, can we have some partners that actually help them with that, right? As well as SMEs, right? Basically, other than we have them to place our orders, other than we facilitate that, right? In terms of their own operation, is there anything that we can help, right? We work with any partners, we work with, let's say, any financing company that actually finance the inventory so that they don't have to pay upfront, right? So that kind of things that we do explore a lot of like this kind of support from, it won't be built by ourselves for sure. So we do actually look for a lot of partners that actually help us to actually complete both sides so that we not just only support the deliveries, but actually spreading our help into their daily operation side as well.
Thanks, Reeve. So I'll just choose one more question here. And again, sorry to our audience for not getting to more of your questions. Thank you for submitting all of these, though. So this will basically just be a quick, I think, one-word answer from each of you. And I'll go around again, starting with Bill. The question just here is Tencent WeChat, competitor or partner?
I would say partner, yeah.
Okay, Flora?
Partner.
Ken?
Partner, definitely.
And Reeve?
Definitely partner as well.
Okay, well, there we have it. WeChat is a partner for e-commerce. All right, thank you so much to all of our panelists for sharing their time and insights to this discussion. Flora, Reeve, Bill, and Ken. And of course, thank you to Denise for moderating the chat. To our audience, please take note that the next segment in our Redefining Hong Kong series will take place on February 9th. This will again be in a virtual format where we'll be asking our panelists, can capital investment expand for women entrepreneurs in Hong Kong? So a very important topic. Please be sure to mark that in your calendars and check out our website at redefininghk.scmp.com for the latest updates on speaker confirmations in the coming weeks. And we certainly cannot forget to also thank our Platinum Series sponsor, once again, EY, for their support throughout this series. We hope you all enjoyed the discussion, and we look forward to welcoming you again next time. So long for now, everyone.